Mark Durrant, kind enough to carve out a few moments for us from that radio broadcast. Mark, how are you?
Hey, Mark.
Hey, boys. Always good to talk to you. Hope you had a great holiday and having a good year so far.
Well, we have, and it has been awesome watching a lot of great college hoops. You're seeing a lot of great teams, and it's hard to, kind of try to figure out how nervous should BYU fans be because you have a really good team. You're just playing against really, really good teams at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the conference. There's just it's basically a toss-up in most of the games that you'll play. There's not any easy games. I thought maybe Oklahoma State might be a game you could kind of check off the list, but then they beat Kansas State the other night handily, and so you see a lot of weird results. UCF beat Texas Tech on the road, and then they lose by 50 at home to Kansas, and Kansas loses at home to to West Virginia, and West Virginia loses at home to Arizona. I mean, it's crazy, and so it's going to be. Well, it's unusual. I think we're seeing so many blowouts too in this league, which wasn't the case last year. But you never know what's going to happen. Makes it exciting, makes it fun, and it's a high quality basketball too, which is fun. I mean, obviously the result last night wasn't what BYU wanted, but two really good teams, a really good offensive team in Texas Tech, and they had players that made some big shots down the stretch. And so, I mean, it's fun just from a basketball fan perspective to see great games with good teams playing each other, every night.
Mark, when I watch this team, I do feel like it's a bit of a tinderbox. Like at any point, it could explode into something great because when you figure out how to use Foos's dominance and Yegor starts really hitting from the field, really from anywhere, with consistency, I feel like this could be an incredible team, but you've just got guys that are trying to find their parts and find their rhythm, and you got Yegor who's trying to figure out what his meaning is. But doesn't it feel like this team's got the talent that it could explode and finish the season out extremely strong?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, last year, I think expectations were pretty low, and BYU exceeded them, and so because you do that, then this year the expectations were high with a lot of those guys back, and then you add in Yegor and Cannon and Kaba, and so the expectation was, you were good last year, and now you probably should be as good or better this year. And obviously it's still early, but BYU, I would say, at least so far in conference play, has underperformed. I mean, they had a really nice game against ASU, but, they didn't shoot well yesterday, and obviously got drilled at Houston. So I think there's a kind of a feeling that they're underperforming relative to their talent, which I think is accurate. I think Yegor, as good as he's been since the injury, has underperformed. But I thought he looked really good last night. He's still struggling knocking down shots, but he looked more like himself and was a real factor in that game last night. And these guys, listen. These Yegor and Cannon, you got to remember, as good as they are and all the things people talk about in lottery picks and things, they're still 18.
Yeah.
And you're still, even if you're good at basketball, you're still kind of, you don't have the experience and maybe maturity that you might need to really be successful. I mean, I can't even imagine, I can't even remember or don't want to remember what I was like when I was 18. And I can only imagine how awful Hans was at 18. I mean,
I was still handsome.
The level of immaturity that he must have had at 18 is beyond me. But so I mean, as good as they are, they're still 18. They're still working through it and getting better. And so that's a process, and it's hard as fans, especially if you're talking about one and done type guys. Whether they are or not, I don't know. But you kind of hope and expect them to do really good things while they're there, and they're doing good things. I'm not trying to diss on those guys, but I think to Hans's point, and the question is, as those guys get more experience and get more comfortable and play better, that this team could really be good. And so again, the trouble is, as good as BYU could be, that all the other teams are probably that good too. And so now it's a matter of finding ways to win games and making the shots when it counts, because they didn't do it last night, and they'll need to do that if you're going to have success in this conference.
When you look at your experience in playing college basketball and, having the same guys around you for the most part for, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the case might be. And so you get to know each other on and off the court. You develop that chemistry. And in this day and age, when all of a sudden you're throwing 18-year-olds right to the wolves, and then you put together a team and you say, all right, 1, 2, 3, have chemistry, go. How difficult is it? And sometimes how out of whack can our expectations be when we expect a team to immediately have chemistry out there on the court?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an intangible. I mean, some teams can do it. I mean, I'm watching from a distance, USU play, and you get the front row seat there, and they seem to have a really nice chemistry that's just kind of happened. And some teams, they've got a lot of talent on their roster, but just don't seem to kind of put it together and don't have that chemistry. So it's a little bit hit and miss, and there's a lot of outside factors too. I mean, BYU has had some injury issues. Jaeger was out a month. Dallin was out a month before that. So that starting five only has 4 or 5 games that they've kind of started together. And so I think that's a little bit of it. But I think the other problem BYU's having is a little bit of a lack of consistency. They have some really good depth, but one game Richie will score 30, and then the next he'll score 4, and one Dallin will have a nice game and then kind of disappear in the next game, or Trevin will hit 4 threes, and then last night doesn't hit a 3. And I think there's a little issue right now of not knowing exactly where it's going to come from. There was always comfort for me as a player to kind of know, okay, Andy Toolson and Marty Haas are going to get 30 to 40 points together every night. That's what's going to happen. And then all of us other guys kind of chip in, or Russ Larson and Ken Roberts are going to get 30 to 40 points. And this team, I think it's like, where's, we all can score a lot of points, but where's it going to come from tonight? And even that's not so bad, but I think the real issue is, I don't know that this team has a reliable finisher late in the game to hit the big shots like Darian Williams did, or some of those guys from Texas Tech. When the game was on the line, they knew who they were going to, and they got buckets. And I think BYU's a little bit like, well, we're in this game, but who's going to step up and make the big play for us? And anyway, that was a long, rambling answer, but I think these are issues that can be resolved, and that it'll kind of work its way out. But unfortunately now, you may lose a couple games because it's not kind of where it needs to be right now. But again, to Hans's point, I think they can get better and hopefully find a way to win some of these games that they're, like last night that they lost, find a way to win that type of game.
Well, I feel like they have an opportunity to get a lot better. And, I'm watching Kevin Young, who is doing everything he can to organize the talent, and he's putting a lot of good energy out there on the sideline, and you can see how engaged and how knowledgeable he is. And obviously we know how knowledgeable he is. He's one of the most sought-after NBA. He was the associate head coach and one of the most sought-after assistants in his time. So we know that he's great. I'm curious how you're seeing him as a coach and his organization and his personnel decisions and some of the scheme he's running. How comfortable do you feel with him right now, and how much can he improve in your opinion?
Well, I'm on the Kevin Young train. I'm a little fanboyish of him right now. I really like him a lot, and this year we're traveling a little more with the team, so I get to see a little bit more up close what's going on, and I have nothing but positive things to say about him and his staff and how they're running things, and I think it's refreshing and really good to see, and will pay dividends going forward. And I have nothing but utter confidence in Kevin, but he'll tell you this. I mean, every coach will. I mean, Mark Pope, he got better every year that I watched him coach. And as good as Kevin Young is, he can get better, and he'll figure out some things that maybe need to be done in the college realm that maybe is not so important in the NBA realm, and he'll make the adjustments. And I give him a long leash, but I don't think he'll need it. I think he's very driven and super smart and knows the game and will figure it out and will make great strides quickly. But I think he's starting from a very high place. But I do think he'll get better and the team will get better. And he's certainly proven to be a terrific recruiter, which is such a big part of college basketball. And hopefully he can maintain guys from year to year and all that stuff, which is so important. But I think he's a great coach. Will get better, and I'm just, if I had concerns about coach, I would tell you.
Oh yeah.
I like to think I'm a pretty straightforward guy, but right now I just think the world of him and is doing a heck of a job.
You are a straightforward guy, so I ask you this kind of open-ended, and because I'm, a lot of times I'll ask questions and I think I know the answer to it, but I don't. What do you do with Dallin Hall? What's his role on this team?
Yeah, Dallin, it's hard. I mean, my impressions are, he had some injuries over the summer and I was out for the first month of the season, basically. And you've got this, obviously, a new factor with Yegor who demands so much attention. And so I tend to think that Dallin's a little bit lost, a little bit rusty. He certainly shows signs of getting back to where he was last year. And, I mean, think about what he did last year, running that team through their first trip through the Big 12 and having such success. And he hit some big shots at Kansas. I mean, he's a player. We all know he's a player, which makes it clear that he's underperforming a little bit right now. I think he needs, and I saw this a little bit last night. Even though they lost, I thought they did some really nice things. They made a few changes. They let Dallin, when Dallin and Yegor were playing together, they let Dallin run the point with the ball in his hand a little bit more and had Yegor do some off-ball stuff and cut to the basket and score in the paint. And it looked much better, and Dallin looked much more comfortable. But I think he needs the key for Dallin is just confidence in being aggressive. He's an aggressive bulldog type of player. He's got to be in his mind just attack. And I just think he's a little bit lost and his confidence is down, so he's not being that guy right now. But when he gets that back and attack and get to the paint and score at the rim or dish out of it, I think that will help him. And I think Coach Young is kind of figuring out, well, how these two guys are going to play together. Should I play them separately? And when they're together, how should I use them? And I think he's figuring that out. It looked much better to me last night, but there's still work to be done. And I'm confident Dallin will get there. I mean, he's too good of a player to not be a major factor for this team. And I think as he gets better, we talk about the young guys getting better, but as Dallin can get back to form, I think that'll be a real big factor for BYU's success.
Well, back at it at TCU and going back to a place you haven't been in a long time, I would imagine, unless you've been back there for some other reason, but back at TCU, they just got blown out by Houston. Saturday is going to be a big game. This is a big test. They both sit 1-2 now in Big 12 play, but this is a big test for them, isn't it?
Yeah, obviously it becomes more important because you dropped one at home, and if you want to have any success in the conference, the formula is obviously to win your home games and pick up a couple road games. So, yeah, they put themselves in a hole. They were in that same hole last year, and having to go on the road. But the thing is, it's a winnable game. But the road troubles obviously give you some pause, right? But I think it's a winnable game. So one good thing about losing is it creates a feeling of desperation and motivation that otherwise might not exist. And so I expect to see a great effort from BYU. It's going to be tough, but if they could somehow get a win and kind of get their feet set on the road a little bit more, and then come home and hopefully they play Oklahoma State, and hopefully that's a game the BYU can take care of business, and then you're 3-2 and you're right back where you need to be. So it's not the end of the world for BYU if they can kind of find some ways to get a road win at TCU and then come home and get a win. But I mean, their road performance so far does not instill a lot of confidence in doing that. But TCU's not Houston either,
yeah.
And so you just go and you play hard and see what happens, and try and get back where you need to be in the conference.
You know, when you're calling games in the Mountain West or you're calling games in the West Coast Conference, you always had those teams you called, the get-right games. And, Utah State played at San Jose State, even though that game was a lot closer than it should have been. You look at San Jose State, that's a get-right team. You don't have any get-right teams in the Big 12. From top to bottom, that team doesn't exist.
No, it's. I mean, there's no gimmies, and I've found that even when BYU was in the West Coast Conference, there weren't any gimmies. I mean, teams are. If you're a Big 12 player and a coach and a program, you have an expectation and have resources and get the kind of athletes that, even though they may not be having a great year, can play really good on any given night. So that's what BYU signed up for. That's what they wanted.
Oh, yeah.
That's what. I mean, this is the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is what we want,
It's
and
the good stuff.
It makes it hard, but that's the whole point of it. We wanted to be here and play in these types of games.
It's still a better direct way to get to the tournament.
It's a good, no doubt.
You still have more of a chance to get to the tournament than you would in the West Coast Conference.
Oh, by a mile.
One LMU loss, and it was like, well,
Done.
Right,
Yep.
right.
Hey, Mark, you're the best, man. Hope the holidays treated you well. Say hi to the family, and look forward to catching up with you again here very soon.
we love you, Mark.
Hey, I love you guys. Hey, Hans, Greg and I the other night went to Uncle Julio's, and I couldn't convince him to get the chocolate piñata, though. So it was kind of disappointing.
He's traumatized from the last
Is that
time.
the thing you shredded and blew
Yeah.
up over everybody?
Yeah, I hit it with this club, and it blew chocolate and whipped cream all over Greg.
And you're wearing those nice white shirts.
A churro ended up in his ear.
Oh, man. I tell you what, though, that sounds delightful, though.
Oh, Uncle Julio's
Oh,
is
it's
the real
fantastic, man.
It's good food.
All right. Well, hey, appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and we'll catch up soon.
See you, Mark.
All right, boys. See you later.